in case you've missed that Google form, there's the address. Okay, about another minute to fill in that form. I'll go and fill it in while I'm doing it actually. So I'm at a regional office. I'm a non-teaching role at the moment. Yes, I have heard of CloudShare. Continue. Hopefully you can see my screen now, and you can see that as responses are coming in, they're recorded immediately, right? So what you're doing is you're getting real-time feedback directly. So if you can think of a situation at your school where you'd like to get real-time feedback from your students in the class, maybe it's something like a pre-test of a topic you're just about to introduce, maybe it's an administrative task at your school. This is something where you can very quickly collect data in a really easy way. Not only that, you can also have a quick look at a summary of that data. So Google has some pretty nifty tools that let you show a summary of the responses that you've had. And this is something that I think is really useful. So we can quickly see that today we've got most people, 64% from a high school, about 21% from a primary school, etc., and a couple of us from regional offices. Most of us are classroom teachers, a few in a non-teaching role. And 13 of us have heard of CloudShare, and one person who's new to CloudShare. So I won't ask who that person is, but welcome. You're using CloudShare now. We can see most of those people, of the 13, by the way, this form, if you answered no to CloudShare, you didn't have to go and answer the other questions because they weren't really relevant. So we're just getting these 13 responses here. So pretty much everyone's using Gmail daily. Most people are using, 11 of 13 are using it either often or daily. Most people are using Contacts. There's a few people who haven't before. And some people are using Drive pretty regularly. Well, that's good. Google Plus, which is etc. There's a few people who only rarely use that. I'd encourage you to get to have a bit more of a look at Google Plus. It's a really useful collaboration tool. And we can go through the rest of these statistics as well. I'm not going to go through them now. The point was to show you that Google can be used to save you time. That's the point. That you can create a form. It doesn't take long to create a form. And you can quickly collect this data. We collected it from 13 people. It could be 13 million people or 13,000 people, right? Google can handle all of that. So I hope that's given you just a really quick example of where Google or CloudShare can save you time. Just a really good example with a Google form. I just want to go back for a sec. And just for the benefit of that one person who wasn't sure what CloudShare was about, I want to quickly talk to you about, and I won't spend a lot of time with this, but quickly talk to you about the cloud. What does the cloud mean? And this is something we cover off at the boot camps. I won't go into this video, but this is a pretty cool video called Frank the Dog. You can Google it, or cloud computing. If you Google that, you'll find it. That is a really cool video that shows you what computing in the cloud is like. But I'm gonna skip past that. Basically, and you can look at that again in your own time. Basically, what we're talking about is a group of applications that don't live on your hard drive, like, say, Microsoft Word might live on your hard drive. Instead, they live on Google servers, and you get to those applications by using. So it's not like Microsoft Office, for instance. You get to those applications by using the internet, right? So you can get to those. Whether it's Blogger for writing blogs or your email or your calendar, you get to that via the internet. So Google Drive is an example of one of these applications that you get to in the cloud. That's why we call this environment CloudShare. What does it do, or what's it used for? It's used to store files, to access information, to share that information. You can create documents and edit them. You can comment on documents, you can draw, you can brainstorm, and as you just saw a moment ago, you can conduct surveys. You can mark work, you can present it back just like I'm doing now. You can provide feedback, you can upload existing information and download it back again. There's a whole range of things that you can do with Google Drive. So as I was saying, Google Drive is a little bit like Microsoft Office in one aspect. So I'm sure most of us are familiar with Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, maybe PowerPoint, that suite of tools. But there's a bit of a difference. And the difference is that when you want to use Microsoft Office, you have to go to a computer that's got that installed on it. It lives on that one computer. But when you go to CloudShare and access Google Drive, you can get to Google Drive from anywhere, any device at all. In fact, you only need 4 things to get to Google Drive. The 4 things are any kind of device, could be a laptop, a PC computer, an iPad, your phone, any kind of device that's got internet access. So you need internet access. You can do some work with Google Drive and the other Google apps offline, not connected to the internet, but it's designed to work best with the internet. The third thing you need is a browser. That's the way you get to the internet. That's the way you view and interact with the internet. The browser that we recommend is Chrome because it's made by Google. You can use any browser you like, any modern browser you like. So if you really like using Internet Explorer, you can use that. If you really like using Safari, you can use that. Firefox. It's up to you, but we encourage schools to use Chrome because it does give a better experience of the CloudShare environment than some of the other browsers. But if you're keen on another browser, that's fine. So a device, an internet connection, and a browser. I might just adjust our little camera here. There we go. It's a bit better. The fourth thing you need is credentials. You need something that identifies you to CloudShare. In this case, it's your CENet username and password. So all of us have a CENet username, all students have a CENet username, and most of us have a username at the form firstname.surname. So if you've got those 4 things, it doesn't matter whether you've got Microsoft Office installed. You don't have to have anything installed in your hard drive except for a browser like Chrome. But if you've got those 4 things, you can get to CloudShare. And that's got some real benefits. It means that you can get to these tools and get to your files anywhere, anytime. You've got those 4 things, you've got access. So what's in it for you? Well, I guess this harks back to that why bother type question. So what's in it for you? Well, you can just use Google Drive to back up your files if you want to. Google Drive auto saves, so no more having to, think, oh no, I've closed that up and I didn't save it. It saves it for you automatically, so you don't lose work. Students can share things with you and you can share stuff back to them. So students can work on projects and share them with you via this environment. We talked about pre-tests using forms, that's an example. No need to use a USB disk. You've got plenty of storage space in Google Drive. In fact, Google's just upgraded that to 30 gigabytes of storage space. So that's plenty for most people. And if you need more, you can actually buy more. So there's plenty of storage space, usually a lot more than you can get with a USB. No need, I love this comment. By the way, I didn't make up this slide. This slide was shared with me by another colleague, a school teacher. So she pointed out that there was no need to try and find it in your bottomless pit of emails, right? So it's easy to find information because Google's really good at search. We'll talk about that later. And no need to carry paper, work from home. It's there in Drive for you. So the fact that you can get to these things, get to your work, get to your files all the time is a critical part of why Google Drive is so useful and why people find it benefits them, not just for their own productivity, but also in the classroom. Just one other side note, and we're not going to go into this today because this is Google Drive 101, not Google Drive 102 or beyond. Google Drive is also an app that you can download. It's an app that you can download on your phone or your iPad that gives you access to your file store in Google Drive. And it's also an app that you can download onto your computer so it synchronizes your files between the Google servers in the cloud and your own laptop. Now, there are some specific benefits for people who like to use the desktop on their computer to manipulate files. We're not going to go into that today because it's a bit of an extra step. but just to be aware that there's an app you can download for your iPhone, your iPad, your Android device, and also for your computer. All right, so I'm going to talk about, I guess that's a kind of by way of a bit of an introduction, but I want to talk about, I guess, 4 main things today. The first is access, which is pretty simple. How do we get access to Google Drive? The second is how we make things in Google Drive. How do we create things? Third is how we share things in Google Drive. How do we collaborate using Google Drive, given that that's one of the real benefits that we see schools taking advantage of? And the fourth thing is to talk about some of the ways that Google Drive can be used in the classroom, used for learning, used to benefit learning with your students. So access, create, share, and learn. They're the 4 things we're going to talk about. So the first thing is, well, how do you get access to it? Can I encourage you, if you're not logging into the CloudShare environment just by simply going to your email, then you're probably going around it in the wrong way. I've seen some people try and access into CloudShare by bringing up Google, as in the Google search engine, and then hitting the sign in button. They have to type in their username and password. Then they get prompted again to type their username and password again. They have to do it twice. No, you don't have to do that. If you type that internet address into your browser, you'll go straight to that blue CNET login, type in your username and password, and you're in. So that's definitely the best way to do it. Once you've logged in, then it's simply a matter of, so you can see I've got the top of my mail here, it's simply a matter of clicking the Drive icon. So I'm just going to exit the presentation, and I'm just going to click over onto my mail here. So just notice that I'm not sure if this will zoom in for us. There we go. So you'll notice that I've got multiple tabs open here in Google Chrome, right? That's a common thing, something you need to get used to as you're using Google Chrome to access CloudShare. You'll often see lots of tabs listed across the top. So I'm looking at my mail at the moment. To access Google Drive, you use this black menu bar. So this is the way you get to all of the applications in CloudShare, whether it's your calendar, Google Sites, Groups, Contacts, any of those applications. They're all those applications stored in the cloud that you access via CloudShare. So when I click Drive, it will open me up into my Google Drive. So here it is here. So I just want to spend a little bit of time, and you can do this with me if you like. You can take some time now to go from your mail, click the Google Drive button, and go on and bring up Google Drive. If you haven't used Google Drive before, you may see that there's some sort of message on your screen telling you about what you can do with Google Drive. Unfortunately, I can't show you that message, but in the top right-hand corner of that message, to make that message go away, in the top right-hand corner, there'll be a little cross. As I said, I can't show that to you, unfortunately, but you can get rid of that. You might need to ask someone or get one of the eLearning folks to help you with that if you can't do that. But I just want to quickly show you, while we're looking at my Google Drive, I just want to quickly give you a bit of a tour of the interface, right? So we're going to spend a couple of minutes looking at this. So firstly, just zooming in on the top left-hand corner. So I'm looking at Google Drive. Obviously, it's telling me the application that I'm looking at, the Google app I'm looking at. A big red Create button. That's nice and easy. So when I click on that, you'll see I get some options on what to create. So remember I said that Google Drive is a little bit like Microsoft Office, or that's some of the tools, I should say, in Google Drive are a bit like Microsoft Office. So I can create a document, which is sort of the equivalent of Microsoft Word. I can create a presentation, which is the equivalent of Microsoft PowerPoint, a spreadsheet like Excel. But there are lots of other things, like a form, which doesn't really have an equivalent in Microsoft Office, and various other apps that I can link to this. They're the core 4 ones, though, or 5, I should say. Documents, presentations, spreadsheets, forms, and drawing, basic drawing tools. So they're the 4 we're going to sort of focus on today. So that's the big red Create button. Over here on the left, I've got another little menu here, and I want to point out, just zooming in, I want to point out this little arrow here. See that? Now, some of you may or may not see that arrow, depending if your drive is empty. If your drive is empty, or only has files in it, you may not see that arrow there. The reason why I've got a little arrow there, if I click on it, is because if I click it, it will reveal a folder structure. So in Drive, you can create a folder structure, a bit like you can create folders, well, in fact it's almost identical to the way you create folders on a Mac on your desktop or in Windows using the Windows desktop. So of course you create folders because you want to organize content. And you can see that I've got some of my folders organized, and I've got a folder that we'll look at later today called Google Drive 101 that we'll be sharing with you and looking at together. So there's folders. Underneath that, and we'll talk about this in a little bit later, is an item that says shared with me. Remember I talked about collaboration? We'll get to that in a second. Well, sorry, not in a second. We'll get to that in about 5 or 10 minutes. Then we've got things like recent. So this is pretty useful. If I click recent, what it shows me is all of the things that I've been working on recently. So that's a really quick way to get to files that you've been using recently. Okay? So you can see I've been doing some stuff and working with, you'll notice that some of those files are owned by me. See how it says owner is me? That is, I created them. And you can see it's bringing up my picture when I pointed them, but some are owned by others. So there's Joanne Colligan over at De La Salle Cronulla, right? So you can see that over here, I was recently working on this Tend to Try Google presentation. You'll notice the icons here mean different kinds of files. So that yellow icon means a presentation file. The green icon is a spreadsheet file. The red icon here is a drawing, etc. But what I wanted to point out to you is that Joanne made that Tend to Try Google Drive document, not me. So I can get access to other Google Drive documents that people create. So that's the Recent tab. You'll notice that there's a little More button as well. If I click More, this is a really useful one here. So there's All Items. Some people often get a little bit, not often get a little bit frustrated, but sometimes when you're getting used to how Google Drive works, you can sometimes think that you've lost something. Well, you don't lose things unless you deliberately delete them, unless you specifically delete them. So you can always click All Items to find everything that you have, everything that's been shared with you and that you own. You can also, I like this one here, Activity. It's a little bit like Recent. These are files that have had any kind of activity on it, but not necessarily activity from you. It could be activity from others. So, for instance, this dashboard students one from De La Salle Cronulla, let's see who owns that. Anne-Marie, who's on the video call with us now. That's a file that Anne-Marie's been working on recently, right? So it's high up in the activity list. So that's just a quick tour of that left-hand menu. I'm going to go back to my Drive. You'll notice over here on the top right-hand corner, just below where I've got my email address, and if you're part of Google+, you'll have your picture there. You'll notice that you can sort things. You can sort them by when they were last edited by me, last opened, by their title, or even by how much space they use up. I can also display the files not as a list, but as individual icons, which gives me a bit of a better look at things, right? So, for instance, there's that survey that we were just filling out a moment ago, right? There's a presentation that we did for the top 10 tips on using Chrome, etc. These are folders that we've got listed in Drive, okay? So you can look at this in different ways. That's just a different way of viewing it. And finally, over on the right-hand side, and this is an important icon, I guess, generally in CloudShare, and this is something we point out in the boot camps. Whenever you see an icon that looks like a gear, it's used to control settings, and these are usually used to customize the way you want to work with that Google app. Customize the way you want to work with it. So, for instance, I can change the display density. How, do I want things squished up together, nice and compact, or do I want them spread out a bit more? So I can choose comfortable, for instance. And now you can see my files get listed out a little bit, they're spaced out a little bit more. I'm going to go back to compact because I like to see more on the screen. There's an important setting here called upload settings. So this is an important one for when you want to control how Google interacts with other documents you've got, maybe like Word documents or PDFs. There's also an important button here that says help. So you can click on that to get some help with Google Apps. Just can I point out one of the fantastic things about using CloudShare is because it's all built around Google, if you've got a question like how do I ... a bit of like the things that we're going through here, and you want to say see a video of somebody showing you how to ... you know, how do I add comments to a Google Doc? How do I delete a Google Doc? Something like that. How do I sign up for Google+? How do I create a Google form? Any of those how do I questions, you can literally type that in. I'll show you, in fact, I'll show you now. How do I add comments to a Google form? Don't need to put the question mark in. So you can see I've just typed this in to the Omni box at the top, hit return, and you'll see I get a whole lot of different information about, you know, how to add comments, embed a Google form. Sorry, I meant how to add comments to a Google Doc. Sorry, let's try that again. How do I add comments to a Google Doc? Overview of comments and discussion. So you've got Google's official help, tips and tricks. But this is what I love. If I click videos here, I'll get a whole bunch of videos showing me how I can do exactly that. So the message here, folks, is that yeah, you're going to, you know, you're watching me, and you're, you know, maybe, you know, you're not going to pick up everything, but don't panic about that because you can always just type in your question and you'll generally find out a how-to. So let's get started then with actually giving you a few things to do. And I know I've got about 25 minutes left, so we're going to get you to do a couple of things. So just back to my presentation, just to make sure I'm on track. So we've talked about that. I want you to do these 3 simple things. And I realize it's a little bit context-less, but I just want to get you into the groove or get you feeling what it's like to do these 3 things. Create a document, name it and enter some text, close it and then find it again in Drive and open it again. Okay? So you can do this with me if you want to, or you can go off and do it on your own, that's fine. And I'm going to give you about 4 or 5 minutes to play around with this. So let's say how would I do that? Those 3 things. Create a document. Well, it's pretty straightforward. I'm back in Google Drive. I want to hit that big red Create button. And I'm just going to hit Create Document. Now, I want you to watch what happens when I do that. I hit Create Document, and you can see what happens up here is that I get a new tab. See that tab that's been created up there? See, everything is happening in the browser. Everything is happening in Google Chrome. So I've now got a blank document. And of course I can start, you know, this is our new document, right? And I can start typing it up. That's fine. You'll notice that when I start typing something, I'll just start typing something, part 1. You'll notice up the top here, so it's saying saving. Show it again, colon. See it's saying saving there? So every time you type something in the document, it's going to save. And that's fantastic, right? Of course, you've got buttons like undo and redo and those sorts of things. I'm not going to go too much into this. If you've used any kind of word processor before, this should all be really quite familiar, you know, in terms of formatting and that sort of stuff, right? So that's the way you create a document. The key takeaway for you is that when you made the document, it opens the document inside Chrome. You're not using another application. It's inside Chrome. And that's why it's shown up as another tab. The second thing I wanted you to do, I'm going to flick back over to the presentation, is name it. So I'm going to go back to my tab here. You notice like flicking between the tabs. So there's my document. There's the presentation that I'm running. Back to my document. And I'm going to give it a name. To give it a name is pretty easy. You just click on where it says Untitled Document. and then give it a name. I'll just call it my new document, etc. and click OK. So very simple. And I guess that's one of the things we love about Google Docs is that this isn't hard. This isn't difficult to work out in terms of, okay, how do I use the various menus, the tools, etc. You can explore it yourself. And because it's saving as you go, you're not going to lose anything, right? Now, we'll come back to this Google Documents a little bit later, where we look at some of the tools that are there. There's some really useful tools there. But for the moment, I'm just going to leave that. But this is the third thing that I wanted you to do. So we created a document, we named it and entered some text. Then we want to close it, but find it back in My Drive and open it again. So here I am back on my tab. To close that document, you'll notice, and I'll zoom in so you get a good look at this. You can see each tab has a little close button next to it, right? So I could close the presentation. I'm not going to do that. But I'm going to close my new document. I hit close, and it takes me, in this case, back to the last tab that I was on, right? Which was that presentation, or is that presentation. Now you might ask yourself, well, hold on, where is the document gone? Where is it? Well, Google has been saving that document in Google Drive. So if I go back to Google Drive, you'll see it's there. And it's brought it to the top of the list. Why? Because currently things are sorted by last modified. What was the last thing that was modified? Right? Of course, if you had been sorting this by title, then you wouldn't see it listed there, right? It would be listed all the way down here, right? And you'd have to scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll to find it. But one of the great things about Google is search, right? And as I say here in the presentation, Google is good at search. In fact, it should say Google is really good at search. So if I've lost something or I can't find something, so I've just made this new document, I don't know where it's gone because maybe I didn't realize that it's sorted in a different way, or I've got lots of documents there and I can't find it. How do I find it? I simply go up to the search bar at the top here. So this is probably the most useful thing in Google Drive, this search bar. So I can type in, and I don't have to type in the title of it. I don't have to type in new document, although you'll see if I start typing that in, it finds it. Jason, what's something we've been working on Chromebooks a lot, haven't we? So I can type Chromebook and do a search, and straight away everything to do with Chromebooks will come up. So, but my point is, folks, that if you use that search bar, you're going to be able to find things that you've been working on really quickly. So I'm just conscious of the time. I won't demonstrate these, but just to show you that you can do this, you can upload and convert files. So you can take files that have been created in other programs like Microsoft Office, for instance, and upload them into Drive. And you can create your own folders, right? And as you can imagine, it's pretty easy to make a folder. You simply go create folder, and you can make yourself a folder. You can make folders within folders and create a whole folder structure. So you can see, for instance, here I'll just zoom in on this. You can see that I've got folders within folders here. So we'll get out of this. So the next thing I'd like you to do, or what I want to talk about, is this My Drive versus Shared with Me. So as we've talked about before at the beginning, one of the key things about Google Drive is the ability to collaborate and share with others. So as I was showing you a moment ago, you've got things that are in My Drive, that is things that are either owned by me or owned by others that I've got stored in my own space, my own drive, but I've got all of this other stuff that is shared with me. So what I'm going to do now is, just to demonstrate that for you, I'm going to sort this by last modified. And we should see that Google Drive 101 folder. So this has got a whole heap of files in it that are or a couple of things that we're going to have a look at. One is the presentation that we're looking at now. One was the survey. Another is a collaboration presentation that we're going to work, or a presentation we're going to work on in a second. A really useful presentation on developing student critique, so you can have a look at that, and a tend to try presentation as well. So the question might be, if I've got this folder, how could I quickly share it with you? How could I quickly share it with others, in this case you? Well, because you all registered, I got your email addresses. And I've got your email addresses stored in, not there, stored in a contact group, which I've called CloudShare Support Session. I'm not going to go into contact groups, but this is just a quick way for me to collect all of your email addresses. So there's some people who either are or are not here today because they either could or couldn't make it. Just going to go back to Google Drive. So say I wanted to share all of these resources with you. Well, this is where sharing comes into its own. I'm going to go and click on, point at the folder. In fact, what we might do is we'll do it in 2 steps. I'll say if I just wanted to share one thing with you, say that this Google Drive presentation, right? So I wanted to share this presentation with you. Well, I'm here at the presentation. You'll notice in the top right-hand corner, there's a big blue share button. You'll notice when I hover over that, it says private to only to me. So at the moment, this document, this presentation, is only private to me. And that's the way all documents are when you first create them. They're only private to you. However, if I click that share button, I can now change things. I can change it in this way. I can hit change, and I can say, well, look, anyone in CEO Sydney schools can search for this document and find it. I can make the document completely public on the web. So if you could do a Google search, and if there's enough hits on it, you could find it. I could share it with people, with anyone with the link. So I could get the link to this document, which is up here, that link, or a shortened link like I showed you with the form earlier, and send it to you. In this case, I'm going to leave it private for the moment, save that, and instead I'm going to share it with just certain people. In this case, I'm just going to share it with Jason here, who's next to me. So I click underneath where it says add people, and start typing in Jason's name. Okay? So you'll see that Jason's name automatically populates, Jason Ranieri. And I could select him. So now I'm going to share it with Jason. However, I can determine how I want to share that document. Do I want Jason to edit the document and be a co-editor with me? Do I only want him to comment on the document or only view the document? Right? So if I choose only view, Jason can look at it, but he can't change anything about it. I'm going to make Jason an editor with me. Similarly, over here, I can notify him that I've shared the document, and I can even add a message and also send a copy to myself. Once I'm happy with that, I'm going to click Share and Save. And you'll notice, Jason, I know I've shared it with him because and his profile comes up as well. So, of course, you can go there. You can share those documents. You can share this document with as many people as you like. So, for instance, this document now, I can share with that list of contacts that you just had, which I've called CloudShare Support. And there it is, Support Session. And you'll see once I do that, all of those names come up. Right? You can see all of these various names. And I can make you editors as well. I'm going to click Share and Save. You'll get an email from me. So all of you, and there we are, all of those people will have received an email from me sharing this document. So you can, the question then is, if I've shared that with you, shared this document with you, how do you get access to it? So there's 2 ways to do that. One, you could go to your email now and you'll see an email from me with a link to that document. Right? Or you can go to your Google Drive and click Shared with Me, And make sure under where it says sort, it's got the share date. And at the top, you should see that document come up, right? Obviously, I'm not seeing it because it's my document. It's in my drive, right? But you will see it in your shared with me. You'll see that Google Drive 101. If you click on that link, then you'll see it come up, and you can see now there it is. There's Jason, is it Lorraine? Let's have a look. Laurel, sorry, and a couple of others, Cheryl. So these people have already opened the document. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to not just share the document. I'm going to share the whole folder. So to share a whole folder, you point at the folder. So I'm looking at the Google Drive folder here. In fact, it might be easier if I go back this way. You can do it either way. Here's that folder. I'm going to select the folder and click over here where it says share. So in this case, I'm not just sharing a document, I'm sharing a whole folder. Click the little plus sign, and again, I'm going to share that with all of you. CloudShare Support Session. And I'm going to make you editors. And share and save. Now, just a little caveat with this. When you make someone an editor of a folder, right? If I make you an editor of a folder, that means you can change the content of that folder. So you could, for instance, remove one of those files, but you wouldn't be able to delete it because I'm the owner of that file. So even though it might go missing, you still own it, and that's where that all items comes in handy, or being able to search for it. So if you all go to your Google Drive now and look under Shared with Me, in fact, Jason, you might be able. I'm just wondering whether you can actually show your screen. What you're looking at now is you're looking at Jason's screen, and he's looking at Shared with Me, and so you can see that Google Drive 101 folder. So if he opens that up and goes ahead and opens that, you called it what? So that's what I'd like you to do, in fact. I'd like you all to go to your Google Drive Shared with Me and open up this document. You called it what? What we wanted to do was just have a look at a little bit of collaboration. You can see that in this document here, what we're going to ask you to do was think of some provocative names. Or think of a unit of work or topic that you'll be teaching soon. And then we'd like you to make a new slide, type the name of your unit of work and a brief description of the unit. Then think of some more provocative and engaging names for your unit and enter that on the slide, or even enter it on another slide. And then you can see, because we're all editing the document ourselves, you could add your own provocative name to somebody else's. So we're going to give you 5 minutes to go away and, 3 minutes to go away and try and type in on a slide. You can see we've got some people doing that right now. So away you go. Type the name of a unit of work and a brief description. We'll give you 3 minutes for that. Just while you're doing that, the example that we've got here is a unit of work on components of fitness. I've got the teacher name here and what the unit is about. So some more engaging or provocative names around that might be 100 metres in 9.4 seconds. That's the name of the unit of work. Or I'm here for a good time, not a long time. Or this one which Peter came up with, which I thought was a very provocative unit of work name. Roots and squares. So Zelko, a maths teacher, I'm guessing. Roots and square roots. So dance composition, very good. And body in motion. Keep calm and Gangnam Style, very nice. Okay. So what we'd like you to do is, we've already started to get some units of work in there. What we'd like you to do is add a provocative name to at least another 2 other units of work.